Hello, Notre Dame fans. Welcome to the blueandgold.com National Signing Day recap show. I'm Greg Ladky, along with our recruiting expert and analyst, Mike Singer. This show is brought to you by Bantry Quarters. Reserve your townhome within walking distance of Notre Dame. Visit bantryquarters.com for more information. Mike, let's get right to it with the class of 2022. I think you and I both agree an outstanding haul along the offensive line. It's both elite and the Irish staff finished strong with this one.
Yeah, offensive line haul. I mean, look, it was kind of a concern.
Mhm.
Originally you had, Tai Chang committed around this time last year. Joey Tanona committed back in July or June of 2020. Ashton Craig committed over the summer. Like really good pieces, but like I understand for Notre Dame fans to want like that kind of that big splash. Although I can argue some of those are big splash, but just that fourth big splash. Emil Wagner was a surprise, and that's a really good looking offensive tackle recruit who Notre Dame unexpectedly won that commitment in November. And then you get Billy Strauss, so that's how you close. Now, Notre Dame fans, maybe the Fighting Irish staff should have said, "Hey, Emil, like maybe you should wait until signing day to announce, and Strauss, like wait until signing day so we can make the fans happy." Like no, that wasn't going to happen. They got those guys locked in when they did and didn't look back. So yeah, when you look at the class, I think you have to say that it's either the offensive line or linebackers. That's the best position group
Yeah.
that Notre Dame signed in 2022. I think that's an interesting discussion because that's a really good linebacker recruiting class. And now that Nolan Ziegler is invited to the All-American Bowl in San Antonio, I'll get to see him there in a couple weeks. Notre Dame's 4 linebacker commits, all All-Americans, and their
Yeah.
5 offensive linemen, all All-Americans. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and it'll be a chance for Notre Dame, by the way, to possibly move up in the rankings if some of their players perform really well in those all-star games. They are 7th in the nation right now in the team recruiting rankings for the class of 2022. And there's some players Notre Dame has. I mean, Ashton Craig's just a mid 3-star. He's in an all-star game. He's in the game in San Antonio. Eli Raridan's just a high 3-star. So we're not talking about catastrophically large jumps, but it's a chance for Notre Dame to maybe like solidify a top 7 class.
Yeah, I got to write down on my note Ziegler, now an All-American Bowl guy.
Mhm.
And you mentioned Raridan bumped up from a 3-star to I think he's around 180 in the
Oh,
country.
that's
So
right.
he
I'm
did
sorry.
get a bump.
Yep.
So here's the All-American Bowl. This is formerly known the Army Bowl. This is the Notre Dame players in it. You got Schrouth, C.J. Williams, Josh Burnham, Tobias Merriweather, Noafe Tuihalamaka, Tyson Ford, Joey Tanona, Aiden Gobira, Ashton Craig, Emil Wagner, Bryce McPherson, yes, the punter even, and then Nolan Ziegler. So that's what, 12 guys, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
It's 12. And then the Under Armour game, Jalen Sneed, I'm not Amorian Walker anymore. I got to take him off. Jalen Sneed, Steve Angeli, and Tai Chan. So that is 15 of Notre Dame's 21 recruits are playing in one of the 2 major postseason bowl games. And one of them who is not is someone who we're going to talk about, who I think is potentially going to be one of the better players of this class. So yeah, it's a pretty impressive group.
Who out of that group are you most excited to see? I guess take it for each game. Who are you most excited to see at Under Armour? Who are you most excited to see in the All-American game in San Antonio?
Definitely Bryce McPherson. I love punting. I'm kidding, but I actually am looking forward to meeting him and his dad, Mike. They're good people. Well, I gotta go with someone who I haven't seen before. Actually, I think I said C.J. Williams on the top. I gotta delete that, so that's 11. I apologize. I hadn't updated my list.
That's okay.
So C.J. Williams, obviously not a Notre Dame commit anymore. So that is then 14 of the 21 guys, I believe, is the count playing in one of the 2 All-American Bowls. So I would say someone who I haven't seen before, and I'm going to say Tobias Merriweather.
Mhm.
Receiver position, I'm sure we'll get chats about it, super chats and comments and whatnot. wanting to talk about this because everyone's. I'm looking at the comments right now, and no one said the word Dell yet. I'm kind of surprised, but
Yeah, I'm sure.
um, yeah. So I mean, it's a position where there's a need for someone like him right away to play, and if Notre Dame does get another high school guy, I'm sure it's not going to be a highly touted player, because most of those guys have already signed, obviously, and then maybe a portal guy. So I would really want to see what Tobias Merriweather can do on that stage. I really like him as a player. I mean, look at him in the slot here. I mean, around four guys catching it in traffic, which we're seeing on the YouTube.
Mhm.
Yeah, he's a really good football player. He's long. He's not a one-trick pony like Tommy Rees said in his sign day press conference. Even plays a little cornerback as well. And then as far as the Under Armour, I've seen Sneed, Angeli, and Chan all in person before,
Mhm.
all at the Future 50 over the summer. Camping or in Bradenton, who's at IMG Academy. So I want to see Angeli.
Yeah.
How does he perform? With all those good players around him on both sides of the ball. So yeah, I would say Steve Angeli. Looking forward to seeing what he looks like in that in that environment.
And you've seen him earlier this fall, but the interesting thing about Angeli is that they don't throw the ball a whole lot at Bergen Catholic. I mean, I forget what his exact number of pass attempts this year, but it was like 107 attempts or something like that.
Is it weird that I know it? It's 117 of
Okay.
170. I mean, I put this together. It was like 1,700 yards, but 15 touchdowns and just two picks, and 5 touchdowns came in this very game. But I don't know in his entire career at Bergen Catholic if he threw more than 20 passes in a game. Like they
Yeah.
just, I mean, they're a dominant football team. They run the ball really well with Ryan Butler, who I believe is signing with Princeton, or if he hasn't already. I mean, they just Vito Campanelli, if he doesn't have to throw it, he prefers to run the football. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing him in that environment. And when I have seen him at camps and at that Future 50 I mentioned, looked really good. I mean,
Yeah.
he's a good player.
Yeah, these are highlights from his playoff run for Bergen Catholic, his senior season. Bergen Catholic won 14-0, won their state championship, and they're rated fourth in Max Prep's national poll. So they're a pretty serious team. It's always good to get quarterbacks who are pretty used to winning. Mike, just a little bit more on the wide receiver position stuff, and you touched upon it already, but I think that's maybe the most negative or primary concern of Notre Dame fans coming out of today. Um, the immediate need is going to be, okay, we got to run spring practice because they don't have Avery Davis. He's going to be out with a knee injury. They don't know if Braden Lindsey's coming back. And you have the three freshmen, two of which played a lot this year, and then you just have Tobias. So what would be your kind of prediction on what Notre Dame does? What have you heard?
I mean they have to get at least one grad transfer in the portal. I
Mm-hmm.
mean you just have to,
Yeah.
even if they bat 100%, in bringing guys back, which is a priority for Dell Alexander and Tommy Rees and the guys, like then you're only at eight. I mean that's ridiculously low. I mean, as good as this class is, that number is just woefully low. So, I mean, yeah, I think if you're Dell Alexander, Tommy Rees, yeah, that's the number one priority is getting everyone back. And yeah, I think you get a portal guy. If there is a second portal guy you can get, like Tommy Rees said in his presser today, like, going into the portal is tricky, especially at a place like Notre Dame
Yeah.
that has a very specific culture. You want a good culture fit, and that player is coming in not to sit around and develop. Like he's coming in expecting to start or be a major contributor. So it can be tricky, but I think I would like to see them get one portal guy. I would still personally like to see them at least entertain or see what's out there in the high school receiver ranks. If there's anyone who, I don't know if they can flip in the next 48 hours before this early signing period's over on Friday night, or if they can, wait and see if anyone skips the early signing period and sign someone in February.
Yeah, and that will become, as you said, more clear over the next couple days. We have a new artist advertising with us. Barb Stevenson may be new to Blue and Gold Illustrated. However, she is an established pen and ink artist who lives near Notre Dame and has always inspired to create pen and inks of the iconic buildings on campus. In fact, she's even been commissioned by the university to create artwork of those beautiful buildings for special gifts. And now she's offering a new selection of Notre Dame limited edition pen and ink prints, each individually hand painted with metallic gold accents. All of these prints are created from her own photographs taken as she strolls around campus on beautiful days. To view or purchase one of these prints, head to her website, barbstevenson.com. That is, for our podcast listeners, that is BARBSTEPHESON.com, or call 574-210-8388. And I could say I'm also a customer. She's got good stuff. You got to check out the website. It's pretty cool. Mike, last year's class, you started the Joe Alt fan club. Joe Alt was a 5.6 mid 3-star from Minnesota that skinny. People didn't think he was the type of prospect that would play early on in his college career, and now he's on freshman All-American list. So who in this class of 2022 for Notre Dame do you think is going to be the Joe Alt?
I actually talked to his dad here recently, John Alt, and he we were talking about this. I was like, did you even see this coming? Like your son playing? He was like, he like nicely said, no, I didn't. Like, yeah, I don't even know if Joe would have seen this coming. I mean, I tweeted out a video of him the other day, Joe just like stretching, a video that Patrick Engel shot when he saw practice on Sunday, our beat writer at Blue and Gold, and like, dude, Joe is massive. And to think that he was like 6'6", 6'7", 230, this time like 2 years ago, it's quite the transformation. So this was my third National Signing Day covering Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
And my favorite 2020 recruit was Drew Pine, from interacting with him, watching the tape, all that good stuff. I just love Pine. Last year was Joe Alt. Just awesome kid, really rooted for him. This year, it's someone who we just talked about a few minutes ago. It's Steve Angeli. Like, that's ever since Notre Dame offered, actually before they offered him, which would have been in August of 2020, I interacted with him a little bit. And then when the Irish had offered him, I was like, I haven't covered a recruitment in so long, because when I got on the job at Blue and Gold, Tyler Buckner was already committed. So I think it was like a year that like Notre Dame had gone without offering somebody, because they got Buckner so early. So once they offered Angeli, I think 2 or 3 weeks later, I went out to New Jersey just to see him practice. Build a good connection with Angeli, got to know his family a good bit, and have seen him now, I think, in person 4 times. That practice, Rivals Camp, Future 50, and then a game this fall. And I leave impressed every single time with his, his mechanics, his moxie, his personality, like leadership, just everything. And then, he's pretty good, darn good at throwing the football too. And he is more athletic than you would think too. And Reese was asked about Angeli today. He said the first thing that jumps out about him are his intangibles. You sit down, you have a conversation with the kid, you see that he's exactly what you want in somebody that's going to represent your program. And then Reese, talking about Angeli as a player, says you see a guy who can make all the throws and has enough athleticism to escape the pocket. We're excited as heck to have Steve coming here. He'll hit the ground running, and Steve's going to get there. And early January, he'll be enrolling at Notre Dame. So great size too. I mean, he's listed at 6'2", 210, but he looks like he's a good size quarterback to me. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, by this fall if he's, closer to, 6'3.5" or so. I mean, his dad is like 6'6". I think his dad's a big man. So I think Angeli could grow a little bit more. The touchdown pass to Jaden Bellamy there for a YouTube audience. I think Angeli could, grow another half inch or so maybe. And, we'll certainly put on some weight. And, I just like everything about him, and the mental makeup, those intangibles are my favorite things about Angeli. That's really important at the quarterback position.
What do you think about his teammate, Jaden Bellamy? I mean, you just mentioned him on the touchdown catch, but Notre Dame's recruiting him as a defensive back.
All right. So I mentioned earlier one of the non-All-American signees for Notre Dame in this class, I think has just monster upside, and it's Jaden Bellamy. I was actually talking to a source today, close to the Notre Dame football program. I was like, who do you think are just the dudes in this class? Just like the guys who are, going to be, big timers. And,
Yeah.
heard the names you'd expect: Eli Raridan, Jalen Sneed, Josh Burnham, Ty Chan, Emil Wagner. But the one that was like, oh, really, was Jaden Bellamy. Like he's got an it factor about him that's different than his teammate Angeli. Bellamy's is this quiet confidence in him. He's not a big talker. He's not a big Twitter guy or anything like that. But he's got some crap to him himself. Like Notre Dame, from what I heard, is so excited about this young man, either playing the cornerback position, which you see him here on a pass breakup for our YouTube audience,
Mhm.
or the field safety position with his range. He's listed at about 5'11", 175 pounds. I think if he were in the 6 foot or 6'1", 180, 185 pound range, I think you're looking at like a top 100 player. Like, I just think some schools didn't pursue him hard because, he's not the biggest guy out there. But I mean, you want to go through his offer list? I mean, he picked Notre Dame over Clemson, Oklahoma, and Ohio State. I mean, and
Yeah.
Penn State. So he still had really good offers. But again, I think he's someone who Notre Dame fans aren't talking about. He doesn't have a high ranking. I think every major service has him ranked as a 3-star, and he's kind of a forgotten guy. Didn't put up major numbers as a senior, but he's got some crap to him that I think Notre Dame fans are really going to like him as a player.
What do you think about some of Coach Elson's comments today during the press conference, where he was talking about, I think it was specifically to Tyson Ford and Aiden Gobira, but I think that it was saying that they were like basically their first offers, their first targets, their A-list guys on the defensive end list. And it feels like a lot of this class, I mean, coaches always like to say that, just so you know. I mean, they're like, oh, this was our number one guy. But it seems to me that the most of these signees, Mike, were offered really early on. I mean, this wasn't a class that was, or a year where the staff was really scrambling for a half dozen kids down the stretch.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they offered Gobira. It's funny. I can remember all of these things, but I can't remember my anniversary or something. But they offered Gobira May of 2020, secured that. I mean, so that's pretty early.
Yeah.
And Elston offers really early too. So like, he casts a pretty wide net. I mean, I think they offered a 2025 kid today, like at a rush end position. So yeah, Gobire they offered May of 2020, got him in February. Ford was around there, April or so, and then they get him in January of this year.
Mhm.
Even Hinish, Donovan Hinish, they offered November of 2020 and get him over the summer, but the feeling with him was that they really could have, gotten his commitment at any point, but that's just when it took place. So yeah, I mean, Mike Elston, you know, I personally, this is just me, I would have liked to see a fourth D lineman in this class. Darren Agu ended up, he was going to be Notre Dame's fourth defensive lineman. Um, he decommits for whatever reason. Still not really clear, but he ends up at Vanderbilt. I still think he would have been someone I would just mentioned as someone who I thought would have been an impact player in this class. You obviously would have liked to see them get Anthony Lucas. He picks Texas A&M 5-star according to On3 and 24/7. But it's a good group of three that they have. Tyson Ford
Yeah.
didn't have a super strong senior season. I think he had one sack on the season. But I think he was getting triple teamed like a lot of the team, a
Yeah.
lot of the season. So it's tough for him to break loose. Of course, and then these plays here, he's just kind of blowing by guys that we're seeing on YouTube. But it's a good group. Ford's a really good run stopper. He's long and athletic, and that is what Mike Elston really values. Just give me some guys that I can mold into exactly what I want. Ford fits that. I like him at strong side end. potentially growing into a 3 tech, and then go Byra at the Viper position, potentially growing into a strong side end. And I know you can speak to Go Byra
Hmm.
after seeing him in person.
Yeah.
You think that's kind of fair, like strong side end potentially, or, do you like him at the weak side? I mean, wow, does he look good coming off the ball?
Gobira, I think. Well, one of the things I'll make a prediction for Notre Dame fans. I'm high. I'm high on him for sure. But I think coming out of the All Star games, what you're going to hear about Aiden is that he needs to fill out. He is. He's mentioned as 230 pounds. I think he'll tell you he's less than that, or at least he told me that back in October. But he is just what the coaches said in the press conference. Say he is fast off the edge, and he cares. Like he's super wants to do well, and he's a leader on his team. And so I just don't think he's going to be a guy that's going to be a first year impact type of prospect. But once he gets in that strength conditioning program with Coach Bayless, I'm as excited about him as really anyone in the class. I mean, he's definitely going to be a good one. And like I said, I mean, he's going to be studious when it comes to the game of football. He wants it. He wants to be really good, and that's often half the battle. You know what I mean, with these
Sure.
prospects. So, Mike, let me
Yeah.
first off, let's start with viewers to hit like on this video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Mike Singer does an amazing job on blueandgold.com, everyone, and has tons of written content and always more information than you'd get in these videos. So when you go to blueandgold.com, check those articles out. And then also make sure you sign up for our free newsletter. It's a great way to stay up to speed on what we're doing at Blue and Gold and what's going on with Notre Dame football. Mike, the last topic before we get into some questions from our users is I just want to talk more about Jalen Sneed. I mean, he's the highest rated prospect in the class. He was definitely a big topic of conversation, particularly in Marcus Freeman's presser today. What did you think about Marcus Freeman's thoughts? Because he was kind of, I guess, saying that Sneed maybe is one of those players that wouldn't have come to Notre Dame unless Notre Dame really tried to convince him he's that sort of kid.
Yeah, it's interesting. So Sneed is definitely a Notre Dame type kid,
Yeah,
like
he's smart as a whip. We
100%.
should mention
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, super
Yeah,
smart, very kind. Like he's the kind of kid who, after like a big game, like you'll see Jalen Sneed picking up trash on the field like afterwards. Like I haven't actually seen that, but
yeah,
that's the kind of kid Sneed is. Like, but with him being a top 100 linebacker from the unfertile recruiting grounds of South Carolina for Notre Dame, with offers from, Alabama and everybody down there, like I could see why, Clark Lee, when he was Notre Dame's defensive coordinator, didn't offer Sneed. It's like, yeah, we're not getting that kid. I mean, are you
yeah.
kidding me? Like, how the heck are we going to get Sneed? So I think that Marcus Freeman's connection with Hilton head coach BJ Payne got him in the door like big time. And Freeman talked about this during his press conference. Marcus Freeman's wife went to high school with BJ Payne up in Northeast Ohio.
Yeah, at Massillon, he said.
So,
Yep.
yeah, Massillon. So yeah, again, got him in the door. And I remember interviewing Payne after the Fighting Irish offered Sneed. I had no idea about this connection, and Payne was telling me all about it, and he said he told me what he had told Sneed, and Sneed's mom, when he was at their house talking about the Notre Dame offer, and he said, I don't know if you're going to fall in love with Notre Dame, but you are going to fall in love with Marcus Freeman, and you're going to want to play for him.
Hmm.
It's not a surprise when Brian Kelly leaves for LSU, and we're not sure if Freeman's going to get the job or not, that Sneed told me on the record, essentially, I will be decommitting if Marcus Freeman is not staying at Notre Dame. Like, and again, Sneed's a Notre Dame type kid, for sure.
Yeah, no doubt.
But needed some convincing, and was not like the, your supernatural fit of like a Midwest kid from a Catholic school or something like that. Um, so like this is an example of, Marcus Freeman recruitment, that, he comes in, and kind of make the kid realize, yeah, you want Notre Dame. It's far from home and it's cold, but you want this place. I think you could throw in Nwafe Tuli Halamaka in that too. The Fighting Irish didn't offer him until a couple weeks after Freeman got the job.
Yeah,
From a private school in Southern California, more of a natural fit. But Notre Dame offers Tuli Halamaka, decommits from USC, And then he told me afterwards he pretty much knew he wanted to be at Notre Dame.
Yeah, I think for recruiting fans, Jalen Sneed's already a fan favorite for Notre Dame fans. But I think fans that don't follow recruiting are going to grow to love him. I mean, as you mentioned, he's super smart, super nice. He goes and competes at every camp possible, but he's able to turn it on when he's on the football field. He's not so nice on the
Oh,
football field.
yeah. I guess we didn't, in all of that, I didn't talk about him as a player at all. But I mean, Greg, I've seen him 4 times now too, including a couple of rivals camps. So you saw him there,
Mm-hmm.
when you're shooting that. And how he, like, when we watch his tape and he's just coming off the edge as a junior, and then you watch him at the rivals camps where he's locked up with tight ends and running backs, 45 yards downfield and making pass breakups, getting his head around at the last second, like, you're like, whoa.
Yeah,
So um
he's
I'm
a good
trying to
athlete.
remember what Mike Goolsby has said. And I see a comment. Someone said Sneed and Colley are going to be a great duo. I want to say that Goolsby likes Sneed at Will and Colley at Rover, but I might have it backwards. But like, whoa, what
Yeah.
a nice duo that is. Um, I mean, Prince Colley was just a gift that Clark Lee dropped Notre Dame before he took the Vanderbilt job. Wow, I mean, that's they're pretty similar players too. Like Colley's a little bit thicker, but Sneed is thinner but has more burst. Yeah, that's two really athletic linebackers.
Irish fans, now is your chance to live within walking distance of Notre Dame. Bantry Quarters is a brand new townhome community located just south of the university in the popular Eddy Street Commons neighborhood. Each Bantry Quarters unit has 3 bedrooms and 3.5 baths. Unlike a typical townhome, your Bantry Quarters home has the main living area on the ground floor with direct access from your attached garage or front door. We are under construction with the first 2 buildings scheduled for completion in the fall of 2022. Our cozy Bantry Quarters community has only 28 units and 12 remain available for purchase. For more information or for reservations, visit bantryquarters.com. Mike, I'll give you one more question for me before we get into some user questions. But one other really interesting point in the press conferences today that Coach Elston was bringing up was how this changed. Mark Freeman is at head coach. Like, when does it really shine through with recruiting classes? Is it next year or is it in 2024? And I'll frame that in terms of like, when is Notre Dame's next top 5 class going to be?
Yeah, yeah, okay. Man, I love doing these shows. I love talking Notre Dame football recruiting. It's so much fun. Okay, so I was talking to a source on the Notre Dame side of things in the past 2 weeks or so, and I said, "All right, I'm just gonna tell you something, source." And I was like, "You tell me if I'm wrong." Like Brian Kelly, because we always say things as media members. We're not, like what do the people actually know their crap? What do they think about some of this stuff? So I was like, "All right, I'm gonna tell you this. You tell me what you think." Brian Kelly, and I've said this, for a couple years now. He's good when he recruits, but like since he's not an active recruiter, like that kind of like bleeds into the coaching, like the assistant staff being able to be lazy on the recruiting front if they want to for an extended period of time.
Yep.
Like that, like if you don't have the accountability from the top, like, then the assistants are going to be lazy. And I asked the source, I was like, with Freeman being head coach, what does that look like? I mean, is it he's going to work his butt off at the top and his assistants are just going to kind of follow in line? And the source told me it was like, what you have seen from the defensive recruiting in the past year, and Freeman, when he gets to Notre Dame in January, I would argue that's what, like 40% in of the cycle already. Things get started so early. Notre Dame already had a few commitments on defense.
Mm-hmm.
And Kelly had said that Freeman was essentially the head coach of the defense. So the source tells me what you've seen and how hard the defensive staff has worked is what you're now going to see on both sides of the
Yeah.
ball. And not that the offensive coaches have been lazy or anything. I mean, it's a good offensive class, but I mean, it's going to be a different level now. And Marcus Freeman, when he is out there saying, I'm going to be the lead recruiter for everyone, holy shit. Pardon my French, but Notre Dame fans, that is the best news you have ever heard
Yeah.
because he is a darn good recruiter. I mean, you're going to have him. I interviewed, I haven't written the story up at blueandgold.com. I'll do it the next couple days. I interviewed Chris Vizina, 2023 quarterback offer for the Fighting Irish from Alabama. He was on campus this past weekend.
Mhm.
He told me that, like, very soon after Freeman got the job, Freeman was talking to him on the phone. I'm like, everything Freeman's got going on right now, 2022 class, he's talking to a 2023 quarterback. Are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah,
Like,
that's awesome.
if he's talking to Vizina, imagine all the other recruits he's already talking to. I mean, the dude is, I mean, a workaholic. He is. I mean, did you hear during the press conference, Greg, that his comment about, I'm going to work here and until Jack kicks me out, basically. I mean, we heard that from Kelly like 3 weeks ago, but when Freeman says it, I'm like, like it's authentic. Like I
Yeah.
buy what he's saying. I mean, if you're a Notre Dame fan, I don't know, put some pads up on your walls right now so you don't run through them, because Marcus Freeman, I mean, I'm all aboard the hype train.
Make sure you hit like on this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also drop us a super chat. We'll certainly get to your question or comment if you do that for us. And thank you all for listening. Let's get to the questions. Our guy Kai S. He's asked about Xavier Bradshaw, I believe, the prospect from Virginia. Any chance he joins this class? Mike, I actually didn't look to see if he signed anywhere today. What do you know about that situation?
I mean, Notre Dame. I'm looking this up too.
Yeah,
I'm
I'll look it up.
curious. I don't think he did. It doesn't look like he did.
I looked at his
Um,
profile the other day. It seemed like his recruitment really kind of has slowed down. Like he might be teetering on the non-Power Five level now. It
yeah.
just kind of
It
feels
look-
like that. He did not commit or sign with anyone
yeah,
today.
I guess he visited Virginia Tech here recently. Um, if he's going to wait until the February signing period, then I could see it. But here's the thing: like, this is at least where I stand on this. Like, if Notre Dame, they offered Bradshaw, they recruited him, but over the summer it was kind of weird with Xavier Bradshaw. Like, it's June, it's official visit season, and I don't think he took one official visit. He's playing AAU basketball all month. It's kind of like, dude, like, you're a football recruit, like, take your official visits.
Mhm.
So Notre Dame kind of cooled there. If they weren't sold on him overall, like, I don't know if you go to that now.
Yeah,
I mean, you don't take a guy just to take a guy.
yeah.
Um,
This is where the
that's where I
transfer.
stand. I know it's not popular opinion. I mean, I'm seeing people comment on YouTube. They're all mad at me for my Dell Alexander comments that, like, I think he's a good guy, but I don't know. As much as I think Notre Dame's receiver numbers are woefully bad right now, I would not advocate taking a guy just to take a guy. If Notre Dame doesn't feel sold on him, I mean, look, their record the past 2 seasons, it's been pretty darn good. The staff, you know, I mean, Dell Alexander's been here since what, 2017. Like, I
Mhm.
mean, the offensive staff has been in place for a little bit. Like, I would trust them that they know what they're doing a little bit. I mean, I'm kind of iffy on the receiver numbers here recently, but I still give them the benefit of the doubt. If they don't feel like Xavier Bradshaw is someone they want in the class, I'll believe them.
Nick, we agree with your shout out here. Notre Dame's media, that Fighting Irish media, has done just an amazing job, really, over the last 2 weeks, not just today. Their trailer video, Mike, I was like, that's kind
Yeah.
of weird. But then I guess I didn't think forward about like how it was going to come together with what they did for every individual recruit, which was awesome.
Dude, so awesome. Yeah, I'm going to compile all of them into one article at blueandgold.com tomorrow. So go to the site, probably around lunchtime or so Eastern, and I'll have it up. So cool. Brady Quinn getting involved, all those actors. I'm like, when did they when did they put this all together? I would love to see also the footage of, like, like Amorian Walkers. Like, I would love to see what they said about the guys, like a Devin Moore who, didn't pick a Notre Dame. But yeah, the videos were extremely well done, well produced, and the acting was funny. It was
Yeah.
good. I mean, I liked the personal touches of when you have all the actors talking about the recruits' names. Yeah, so if you don't know what we're talking about right now, and you're listening via podcast or you're on the YouTube live or watching back on YouTube, on what Thursday around lunch or time, I will have that up at blueandgold.com.
Awesome. Bobby O has a question. If need be, who on defense could they flip to receiver? Xavier Watts was at receiver, but I think he showed enough at safety where he could be a starter at safety next year. I've got a crazy idea that people throw around on our board, but Nolan Ziegler is a legitimately pretty good wide receiver. I mean, his stats are awesome, but I don't think Notre Dame wants to do that with him either. So,
Hey, if that works, great. I personally don't see it. I mean, he's not playing against great competition, in those super low levels and maybe not super low, but the lower levels of Michigan high school football. I mean, I think his team has lost like 1 or 2 games in like 4 seasons. They're ridiculous. I feel like you don't see often, maybe on the line, but defensive guys move into offense. Maybe I'm wrong there. I don't know.
let
Yeah,
me
Xavier Watts is the only person I can think of. I guess now that I'm thinking about it, you see linebackers move to running back or a nose guard move to offensive guard, but Xavier Watts is the only person I could really think of, if not Ziegler. I mean, Cam Hart signed as a receiver, but you're not moving him over there. So
Yeah, let me load up some Nolan Ziegler highlights. Some of the stuff will be line. See, there's a wide receiver clip. I mean,
yeah,
he killed it at wide receiver. He had like 1,400 yards receiving or something. This
I mean, if they need a scout team receiver and he's not doing anything else as a freshman or something, yeah, because I mean we had talked about spring bodies,
yeah,
just needing guys. He will be there in the spring, so yeah, sure, why not? But I I fully expect him to play linebacker.
yeah. He was the Michigan State Player of the Year for their divisions 5 and 6, and Joshua
Yeah,
Burnham won one of the State Player of the Years overall for amongst the Notre Dame commits in that state. And you wonder if that came down to Nolan Ziegler. So pretty cool that Notre Dame's getting two of the guys that were really considered for the top awards in the state, and then B, they're not Detroit area guys, which is kind of interesting. I mean, you got Nolan Ziegler from Grand Rapids, and Burnham is from Traverse City. So just goes to show that you can get prospects from really, I mean, from anywhere. So let's hit some more questions. We'll get a little bit more information from you, Mike, out of why Notre Dame did not land Amorian Walker. What do you think is the story there?
he wanted to go to Michigan. I mean,
Yeah.
uh, I mean, reporting at blueandgold.com for months was like he would take these visits elsewhere. I mean, he probably took, I don't know, 7, 8 visits to other schools while still committed to Notre Dame. And I mean, then, Notre Dame would, hear about these visits and be like, well, what the heck? And, talk to Walker and his family and, you know, whatever reasoning they gave would have Notre Dame be like, okay, we get it.
Mhm.
And, I mean, literally Tuesday morning, I mean, I'm hearing, yeah, Notre Dame still expected Walker. I mean,
Yeah.
like, and then it shifted Tuesday night away from Notre Dame. The phone call stopped being answering, text stopped getting responded to. And yeah, I mean, the Michigan people had been confident all along. The Notre Dame people had been confident. It's like, well, someone's getting lied to. And apparently Notre Dame is on the wrong end of that.
Yeah, I just had a question. Oh, here we go. You'll like this one, Mike, from Eugene McGovern. Mike, what brand of beer are you drinking? Any buzz about who the new OL coach? Oh, Blue Moon. There you go. I'm having water in full clarity right now, but I'm not ruling out a fun beverage later. And thank you for the super chat, Mr. McGovern. Just dropped one. And he asked, any buzz about who the new OL coach might be? And do you think Del Alexander stays or goes after the bowl game? We saw what you did there. Coach Quinn is still on the staff, and he's coaching in practices. So, but Mike, I mean, let's speculate, I guess, a little bit. I don't. Does anyone come to mind for a replacement if that were the case for Coach Quinn?
I've got nothing on a replacement. That's I'm told those conversations they're really going to get into that after the bowl game. As far as Quinn, he was at practice I'm expecting him to coach the rest of the season, but unless he had like COVID or he was sick or something, he was not out recruiting
Mm,
last week. And like ever since the Kelly news broke, I mean, to my knowledge, he was not recruiting.
okay, that's interesting.
So I mean, take that for what you will. Unless he was sick or something, like I think that might be pretty good indication that he will not be returning. And also, if you just we just use our logic and look at Wikipedia, the dude's been with Brian Kelly for 30 something years. That's longer than I've been alive. I just can't imagine that they're going to keep around, the ghost of Brian Kelly in the Notre Dame football offices. I mean, like
Yeah.
Elston has been around for about, with Kelly for like 15 or 16 years. But Elston is, a little bit wired differently. He's someone that, you know, ended up really valuing Notre Dame over Brian Kelly. Obviously, that's why he's still in South Bend coaching for the Fighting Irish. But Quinn, I just can't. I can't see it. And then as far as a receivers coach, Dale Alexander's on the road. I mean, with him losing Walker and Williams, that's going to be tough to come back from. We'll see after the bowl game. No decisions are going to be made, at least public, until after the bowl game, maybe even privately. So we'll have to wait and see.
HJ Greg, we agree with you. A top 10 class with the turmoil of the last 2 weeks is fabulous. Mike, what do you think would have happened if Notre Dame did not hire Marcus Freeman and or just did not hire him as quickly? Like, do you get a sense of whether the class of 2022 was teetering on the edge of falling apart?
So let's say they would have hired him, what, this past Monday or so? I mean, I think kids would have taken other visits, but I think most of the class still would have stayed intact.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean that's obviously tough to say. But if they would have just not hired, like let's say they went the Luke Fickle route and just didn't announce anyone before signing day, I mean, who the heck still would have signed? I
Yeah.
mean, I think some of the kids who just bleed blue and gold, like Ashton Craig, Joey Tanona, Ziegler, Burnham, maybe not even Burnham, maybe Michigan would have been able to convince them. But there's some kids who I think still would have stuck with Notre Dame. But I mean, Notre Dame is a good class, so when that Kelly news broke, that time period between Kelly leaving and Freeman getting hired, like all Notre Dame's commits were hit up by tons of P5 schools. So I mean, I can't, tell you guys what would have happened, but it would not have been good. So that's something I talked about a lot during that couple day period of limbo. I'm like, how much of a importance do you place on hiring someone for right now to save this recruiting class with making sure you get the right guy for the long term?
Mhm.
That's kind of tricky, and it also should be mentioned that recruiting class does affect the long term. So
Yes.
it's pretty layered, but I think Notre Dame did a good job.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier, I mean, Notre Dame has kind of an insurance policy against this dynamic where so many more kids are coming to Notre Dame because of Notre Dame, even though the relationships are important. But that would have been the bigger worry to me is that if the whole staff leaves for other jobs because there isn't clarity about who's going to be the next coach,
Sure.
or if it appears that Luke Fickle is going to be the head coach, but it's not going to be until after the playoff, and he might bring in a lot of his guys. That's where I think Notre Dame basically retaining having everyone but Brian Kelly and Brian Polian. I might be missing one other, but still in the building is huge because those relationships are still there, and that's what impacts so many other for other colleges. When a kid's choosing between an Alabama and a Clemson and a Georgia, it's not really to me the same dynamic as it would be for the reasons the kids are choosing Notre Dame. For those schools, it's really about those relationships. It might be the relationship with a position coach that is the deal maker or the one thing that pushes one of those schools over the other. And Notre Dame is just so well safeguarded against that because of the type of kid that they're
It's kind
getting.
of funny. It's kind of funny that Brian Kelly wasn't a dog on the recruiting trail. Um, but because of that, Notre Dame didn't really have much of an impact in recruiting when he left. So it's kind of like a blessing he left there. Like, there's not a single recruit, even though Devin Moore decommitted after Kelly left, like Moore didn't commit to Notre Dame because of Brian Kelly.
Yeah.
If he did, then why isn't he at LSU right now if Kelly was so important? It's just he wasn't. So Kelly's a great coach. He's been very weird these past couple weeks with all the videos and whatnot, but still a good coach, but just not a super active recruiter. And then conversely, now Marcus Freeman, he's like the opposite of Kelly. He's young, he's defensive minded, he's a dog on the recruiting trail. So whenever that day comes that Freeman is no longer Notre Dame's coach, we'll see what the recruiting class looks like at that point.
And you are to our viewers, feel free to drop who you think is your favorite Notre Dame signee in this class, and we'll maybe talk about them, show some of them some video. But we have gotten like a lot of questions about Travis Hunter, who is he's been the number one player in the country. And it's escaping me whether he still is on Rivals. I should know that, but I know he was.
He's one or two.
Yeah, he has been for a while. When I saw him this fall, I filmed one of his games back in September. He was number one. He was committed to Florida State forever. And he's going to Jackson State. What do you think about this? I think that there's a storm coming in college football with NIL and all this, and it's going to take a little bit of some sort of pushback or regulation, I think, to get it under control.
And if it doesn't, what does that look like for Notre Dame? Which,
Yeah.
Marcus Freeman was asked about that today and NIL and recruiting, and he was like, "Look, we're going to play by the rules."
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm glad to hear that. As a fan of college football, I don't like any of it. I just don't. I don't like what this has become. I mean, like when you're hearing, like an Amorian Walker's recruitment, that Michigan is pitching NIL to him, I'm like, what the heck is that about? Like,
Yeah.
schools are not allowed to facilitate NIL deals. So, like, Notre Dame does brand presentations with these kids to say, here's how your social media following will increase when you come here. They can say, hey, Kyle Hamilton, here's what the NIL deals that he's got, and other players. Like, they can present these facts, but like, schools aren't supposed to be like, saying if
Agents
you come
negotiating
here,
deals.
you're gonna make this money. Like Jackson State, all of a sudden Travis Hunter's making 7 figures just by signing there. Like, what the hell? This is not good for college football. I don't like it. This combined with the one-time transfer rule. I mean, can someone save this video right now? Travis Hunter
It's on YouTube.
will
It'll be there
not
forever.
end. Travis Hunter is not going if he stays at let's say his 3 years, he's not going to finish it at Jackson State. There's just no way. Like if Deion Sanders gets some job, like I think he interviewed for TCU or something this offseason. If Deion Sanders leaves Jackson State in the next couple of years, you better believe Travis Hunter's going. I can't see this like lasting that long with him there. It'll certainly be interesting. It'll be on SportsCenter all the time, but and then the NIL side thing, I don't like it. I mean, I'm a purist of college football. I just love it for what it is: the pageantry, the tradition, NIL and recruiting, and the one-time transfer rule. It's like free agency, Greg.
Yeah, I don't want to make a comment that's controversial, but at some point, the institution of college football is going to have to say no to the demands of a 17, 18, or 19-year-old kid. Because right now it's been a lot of yes. It's been a lot of yes on NIL. It's been yes on free transfer rule. It's been yes on watching huge facilities with, and I'm joking, diamond encrusted lockers and all this stuff built for these kids. And at some point, if we want college football to retain, Mike, as you said, kind of what it's always been about and how endearing it's been for so many people, it's got to have a stop point to all this, or else it's just going to get out of control.
And if you're Notre Dame, Notre Dame's kind of saying, we are who we are. We'll adapt somewhat, adapt but not change. Like Notre Dame's not going to change who they are. So I'm glad for Notre Dame. Like, I mean, I if that means they're not going to have the strongest recruiting classes, and they're going to stay true to who they are, and stay above board on things, and be ethical. Like, I'm all for that. Like, if that
Yeah.
means, not signing number one class or something, that's just my personal opinion. I mean, yeah, I don't love it.
I'm loading up some web pages of Notre Dame's past recruiting classes because I do want to get to the question, and it's a good one from Peter Dagan, 55. How would you guys rank this year's DB class to past classes? So, as far as the defensive backs, we have Jaden Bellamy, right? We have Jaden Mickey. They obviously lost out on Devin Moore. Um, who am I missing? Benjamin Morrison. I believe that is it. Let me pull it up. But I believe that's it for this class. Um, those are the three. So how would you rank them to last classes? I guess I'll go through real quick. Who are the DBs from the previous 3 or 4 classes? Last year was Justin Walters, Ryan Barnes, Chance Tucker, Philip Riley, JoJo Johnson, and Kari Gee. That's a huge class. I mean, that's 6 players. 2020 was Clarence Lewis, Caleb Offord, and Ramon Henderson, um, which you're getting obviously some contribution from 2 of those 3. And then in 2019 was Isaiah Rutherford, Kyle Hamilton. That worked out. Litchfield Ajavan, and KJ Wallace. So, what do you think, Mike? I mean, I wouldn't say that this is a class that exceeds some of those past ones, but what do you think?
It's just it's 3 guys. I mean, I
Yeah,
think it's better than the 2020 group. The 2021. So the 2020 group was, sorry, someone was texting me. Clarence Lewis, Ramon Henderson. See, that's already a pretty good group right there with those 2 guys. So maybe it's not, like, I think, like, when you look at them as recruits, they're shopping down a little bit of a different aisle. Then, I mean, Henderson, developmental guy. Clarence Lewis, we thought was a developmental guy. He ends up playing right away. And then Caleb Offord was, of that group, is actually the biggest name guy, and he hasn't panned out so far. But when it had Devin Moore in it, I was like, felt a lot more like, yeah, that this 2022 defensive back group is the best they've had.
yeah,
But without him, it's it's slowly improving. How about that? Like, I mean, they're the 3 DB signees in this class. Bellamy, I talked about earlier, love him. Ben Morrison, a really solid get. I mean, he had, Washington, another, really good DB school, one of the best in the country. They you know, have a stake, at least I believe, for DBU. And then, so yeah, Jaden Mickey, who we were just
yeah.
watching. Yeah, I mean, he's a shutdown corner. I don't think he's like super versatile in that you're like, wow, this kid could play safety or this or that. Like, he's going to be a field corner all the way, maybe nickel, but it's a really good group. Man, like, Devin Moore, like, that would have been a difference maker, to make this from, like, it's a good DB class to, like, dang, like, this is a really good DB class.
Yeah, I'm just putting up a comment here to what we were talking about earlier from Rock Says 79. And my comments were more like, I don't necessarily, in all those bullet points I mentioned, disagree with the rationale. The problem is that every time that an issue comes up that would potentially alter what college football has been about previously, it has been siding with kind of taking the side of the kids, of 17, 18-year-old, 19-year-old kids, and saying, you know what, and instead of saying, you know what, guys, we can't do this because it would really alter our sport in a way that down the road might not be great. I mean, the NIL thing, I think there's probably, we've talked to the coaches, Mike, and I think there's some acknowledgement that there's going to need to be regulation down the road. They don't know what's going to happen yet. Bad things are going to come up. They kind of don't know. I mean, like, it was going to be hard to predict some of the negative impacts of NIL, and this is today. I think we saw maybe a little bit of evidence that there's going to have to be some regulation, some monitoring about what is going on prior to when a kid signs with the school. Like, are these schools acting like agents and setting up deals, which they're not supposed to do for these players? So I get it. Rock says 79, but the more we kind of add these new things that are differences than what prior rules have been, the more it seems like college football is slowly getting away from us a little bit, in my opinion.
Yeah, only thing I have to add there is just going back to, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like, college football is so amazing. Like, I'm nervous. Like, I just am. And then the NCAA is not really a beloved institution, so they get more involved and say, "This is what you guys got to do." Oh man, Kirk Herbstreit and those guys are gonna freak out. So that'll be fun.
We talked a little bit about Donovan Hinish earlier, and he's interesting because he committed early. But Coach Elson had quite a bit to say about him during his presser. Said he's a more athletic Kurt Hinish. What do you think about that, Mr. Singer? We'll throw some film up too.
I mean,
This is his junior year, by the way.
yeah, he's got to grow, or like he's got to get thicker. Like, he's an undersized defensive tackle right now.
Mhm.
I, I think he probably won't get into the rotation till like his junior year. But I mean, I understood the take when they did. I mean, it's like, hey, um, the word out of Pittsburgh Central Catholic, fantastic program there in Pennsylvania. If they're saying that he's like Kurt Hinish 2.0, maybe a little bit more athletic, I get it. I think he is smaller though, thinner in the shoulders. But I mean, the coaches there rave about him. So if he's another, undersized but like a war daddy on the interior, hey, leverage wins. That's all I got. I mean, Donovan Hinish. Look, guys, he's not gonna, make New York for the Heisman. He's not going to be like I don't think he's going to be an All-American. If his comp is Kurt Hinish and that's what Donovan's going to be, or maybe if it's even like a half step below Kurt Hinish, that's a really good offensive lineman. Kurt Hinish has started more games than anyone in Notre Dame football history. I mean, obviously the COVID year helped, get him there, but so that's not too bad for one of your lowest ranked recruits of the classes.
Mike, I'll let you give your final thoughts on the class of 2022 here, as it seems that Notre Dame is done and they will sign 21 prospects.
Fun class to cover. My first full recruiting class. I mean, there was, I think, 2 offers out in the 2022 class when I got the job at blueandgold.com May 1st, 2019. They had offered Jaden Gould, a Nebraska signee, who at one time I put in a FutureCast pick for Notre Dame. I still contest that Notre Dame would have landed his commitment, but he had an ACL injury, and basically Fighting Irish backed off there, is my understanding. The other one was Tyler Morris, so I also put in a FutureCast pick in for Notre Dame to land at one point. ACL injury as well, and then he committed to Michigan. So very random side note, but if you're 57 minutes into this, then you love recruiting, you're a nut, so you're okay with hearing this. But
380 people watching right now.
I know. Yeah, it was a fun recruiting class, such great kids. I mean, I don't know if I'd ever be able to cover another school after covering Notre Dame. I mean, these are just the best kids, such awesome families. Like, I have like lifelong friends of these parents, and their brother, like these kids' brothers, and heck, even the kids after them playing. Like, I've built like really genuine relationships. They're just outstanding individuals. They're great when you go see them in person. They're very good at football. That makes it fun. Cover Notre Dame football for a living, and specifically recruiting. I mean, that's my full-time job. I mean, I'm a very lucky guy, and to get to do it at blueandgold.com is a dream come true. So stay in touch with what we're doing at Blue and Gold. Go to our website, blueandgold.com, click on that newsletter. I mean, look, all I got to say is sometime soon we're going to have some good news to send out to you guys. And if you think that's like some recruiting thing, like maybe that too, but just some personal things that we got going on, we'll keep you in the loop about. So sign up for that newsletter.
Yeah, and you'll be busy with the class of 2023, because if it's anything like the class of 2022, there were 6 prospects that committed between January and March in this year's class last winter. So it gets going pretty quickly.
Yeah, it does.
Yep. So everyone, again, hit like on this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. Stay tuned to blueandgold.com. We'll have plenty of wrap-up content with the class of 2022. And once again, sign up for that free newsletter. It's the best way to keep up to speed on everything we're up to. So once again, everyone, thanks for listening.